This is the Coaching Leader Podcast, a podcast about coaching, leadership, and leading through coaching. And here's your host, Scott Gress.
Welcome to the Coaching Leader Podcast. And we're so glad to have you here. And if you haven't already, let me encourage you to take a look at LCMScoaching.com, which is the new coaching network in the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. And for today, we're going to be interviewing Rev Dr Dan Prugh. And in this first part of the interview, we ask the question, how do you meet all these people and bring them to baptism? Because he's been doing marvelous work in about the 3 years that he's been at Holy Trinity Lutheran Church in Tampa, Florida. So he breaks it down for us. He talks about his commitment of presence and the values that they live out as a community of faith, both as church and school. And then in part 2, he goes into even more detail about what they say and do. And I think it demonstrates dramatically that it's not some silver bullet program or activity, but a mindset with consistent behaviors that make the real difference. So here's the first part of my interview with Rev Dr. Dan Prugh.
Welcome to the Coaching Leader Podcast, and today we're pleased to have with us Rev Dr. Daniel Prugh. Hey, Dan, how are you?
I am doing great. It is sunny in Florida, but not too hot.
Yeah, we've kind of made that shift, haven't we? The heat is definitely geared down, and we're into those beautiful days. So
it is beautiful. I agree. It's been really nice.
So being in Tampa area, do you get to Universal Studios or any of that kind of, not Universal, what is it over on the West Coast?
Busch Gardens.
Yeah, do you get to Busch Gardens at all?
We've been twice so far. It's the kids like it. It's been a bunch of fun. So there's a lot of fun stuff to do in Tampa.
That's for sure. Well, you've been there for about 3 years, and I noticed within the last 3 years you got your D-Min, right?
I did. So just recently graduated in May of this year.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, your history, your education, and so forth. Kind of bring us up to who you are and where you are right now.
Okay. So, Dan Prugh, and I'm a Lutheran kid from Virginia, which I know goes way far back. But the reason why I bring it up is because I still remember going to the seminary and people being baffled that there would be a student from Virginia at the seminary. But no, did undergrad at Roanoke College, graduated in 2002, and then ended up serving as a volunteer missionary in the Slovak Republic for 1 year, which was an excellent part of my pastoral formation. Really did shift how I see the world. Served as a long-term LCMS volunteer missionary there, taught English. And then ended up, Concordia St. Louis through that pathway. And first call in ministry was to First Lutheran Gainesville, which is where we connected, Scott, initially.
Yep.
And then after a bunch of years in the parish, went for my D-Min while I was serving another congregation in Midlothian, Virginia, Good Shepherd Lutheran Church and School. And then finally to the Holy Trinity Lutheran Church and School in Tampa, Florida. And I now have my doctorate of ministry in missional leadership. My topic was specifically around engaging the Bible daily through listening, which was a very rich topic, and the congregation here benefited from my project, I believe. So, but as I mentioned to you before, I've spent time in schools, whether it be early childhood or now in formal education beyond early childhood. In my ministry. So
yeah, with congregations that you've served. Say just a little bit more about missional leadership. What urged you to pursue that degree and that concentration in the word through listening?
So essentially, got rid of that. So essentially, what happened was I was in the PLI Disciple and Missional Community track, and after completing that, Concordia St. Louis had given me an opportunity to pursue my Doctor of Ministry. And on that journey through the Doctor of Ministry program, I wanted my major applied project to have some type of a direct connection with bringing the Bible alive to people. I personally found that I'd read the Bible most of my life. However, as you know, probably from reading too, Scott, that when you read, sometimes you skip words. Sometimes you don't pronounce names correctly. And I was accustomed to dealing with smaller blocks of text for pastoral study, et cetera. But really listening to the Bible, I challenged myself to take on larger pieces, and through that, had some personal goals and um, extended listening, and really found that was helpful to be able to listen to more of the Bible. And I came to find that the people in the church really did respond well to that also.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. And then so that was a degree that was granted to you just recently this spring, right?
Correct, in May.
And so you were just telling me before we pressed record that in the 3 years that you've been there at Holy Trinity, the Lord has brought 63 people to himself through holy baptism. Is that what you were saying?
That is correct.
Is that babies, children, adults, kind of everything?
I mean, the most recent baptism. So 2 weeks ago, I guess about a week ago, I baptized one of the children in the school, second grader, and her father. They were baptized. Then the week before, baptized some of the students from the school, as well as the father of a student in the school whose son had been baptized a year earlier, which was a beautiful, beautiful day. So as you can see, we're baptizing all ages, as Lutherans tend to do.
Yeah.
The youngest baptism I've officiated here would be 5 days old, and the oldest would be 72 years old.
Fantastic.
And every time we've had a baptism event, we have baptized an adult, at least one, if not many other age groups as well.
Yeah. That's really special when you baptize a child and a parent, their parent at the same time. That was the last baptism I ever did at Trinity in Delray Beach. It was a father and a son. Those were very special. So how in the world do you meet all these people that they're coming to Holy Trinity for baptism? Can you kind of describe the context and sort of how that comes about?
So I'll take you back a little bit to the beginning of my 3 years here, because I really feel like that's been the start of what we see right now. Just as far as my part in it, now not the entire part, because as you know, ministry is not just me.
You're not a solo act?
Oh no. So in the call process, Holy Trinity really desired for someone to be here who would spend time meeting people. That was their main request. I mean, they actually had a list of 10 different criteria for a pastor here. And number one was not, be the principal's boss. It was like, I mean, they had a whole list. That was actually this whole like administrative pastor, senior pastor was like at the bottom of the list. The top of the list was actually somebody who is going to want to love this community and to see a very seasoned congregation with solid leadership, a school that had solid leadership and was growing. Both were growing. To see what would happen if somebody came in and kind of brought these two communities together. Like that was what would that look like? And when discerning this call, that really excited me, because what I do best is actually try to figure that out. Like that's and you got to wonder when you are told this in the interview process if it's actually real. Like, is that you might have this aspiration that you want somebody to come and do this, but are you actually telling the truth? And
great question.
They don't mean not to tell the truth. I mean, it's not like people are being deceptive. I mean, most of the time.
Sure.
It's just that, aspirations and reality are sometimes like
Not
But
quite
when I actually
together.
came,
Yeah.
correct. But when I came to visit, I found very quickly that, yeah, no, this is there's something really, there's a good spirit amongst people in the school, great leadership, good spirit amongst people in the church as well, good leadership. And they really do want to see what's going to happen with this. And so with that being the vibe that I got while I was here, and through prayerful consideration with my wife and my family, as well as people both here and in Midlothian, where I was serving, and other places, we discerned to come. And once we decided to come, as the story unfolded, it was very apparent that we need to be here. Like this ministry was built for me. I get to do 85% of what I want to do most of the time. Like it's really, I know the little strengths thing you used to give me the Venn diagram, Scott, when we talked in coaching many years ago. You get the sweet spot, like even like 35%. Like it's, I'm like at 85%.
That's awesome.
But kind of moving in then to the question of how you get to meet all these people. The beautiful part is that this community was already a revitalized place. There were already some neat things that had happened. A buddy of mine, actually one of my best friends, Andy Schoenbeck, pastor of Florida Georgia District, had been at Holy Trinity for 9 years and really did tremendous work to build up this body. I mean, as far as staffing an entire elementary school, getting administrator that was excellent job, great lay leadership. So he really did set the table for a strong community of people that was growing. And what you have to recognize is that this kind of community is a place where a pastor can be active. And if a pastor is active and present there in very specific ways, you can figure out that, hey, this is a good thing. And again, one thing that people fail to understand is that the education component of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod is still kind of like, these schools are like the last, from my perspective, the last access point to the real world. A lot of people don't have value in church because, again, church is kind of a couple steps back as far as understanding why this would be important to me. I mean, some people have a little bit of artifact in their life as far as I might have been baptized a long time ago or something, but it's getting farther and farther away of why there's a benefit. But the Christian school, people still see that as a good place where kids can have values and loving, nurturing environment, etc. So recognizing that this is part of a place where a lot of reaching can happen beyond Holy Trinity. So when I got to Holy Trinity, the first thing I did was, meet with the principal. And any principal would want to know, hey, how is their pastor going to be involved with the school? And I still remember
fears, anxieties. Yeah.
And I'm like, she's like, you want to go to school board meetings? And I said, no. I trust you. We'll meet weekly. You do your thing. I'll do my thing. As long as the mission is aligned, and again, that's why we meet to talk about that. You're a leader. Like, take your spot. You got it. We're pushing the same direction. And I have come to board meetings occasionally, meaning like once, maybe twice in 3 years, to be helpful as invited. But I've got my own stuff to do. But in this meeting, this opening meeting where I said I was not going to school board meetings. I said, I can't do everything here, but I'll do a couple things here that I think are important, and we'll see what happens. So what I did was I committed to being at morning car line for preschool on Tuesdays, every Tuesday, and to help get little kids out of the car. On Wednesdays, I said that I would be at elementary school drop off, which is the other side of the property. Help the big kids get out. Every Wednesday, I would be present for every chapel service we have. We have 3 chapel services. I will lead 50% of the time, meaning the actual devotional message, so that the teachers have a chance to share their faith with the students. But I'll do 50%. I'll take half the load. But I will be there, present, leading the actual worship components of these chapel services. So the kids know me, and I greet every kid who comes in, or I try to. I wave to them, talk to them, and then as they leave, try and say goodbye and smile. And again, we have 3 chapel services, so that's pretty involved. Wednesday, so I would meet with her once a week for a standing meeting that we would connect, and then on Thursday mornings, I would lead the teacher devotion at 7:20 to 7:30. So those little blocks of, like the car line is a 15-minute commitment. On both days. Chapel's a bit more. Chapel's an entire half a Wednesday. The teacher devotion on Thursday is 10 minutes. So I mean, these are not like, we're not talking like 20-hour commitments here, but we are talking about, I'm going to be in these places every week for the last 3 years, and pretty much I have been. What has that done? Well, it's on the school side of the house. I'll get to the church side in a minute. The school side of the house is that every kid, we now have 230 kids in our school, knows me. Now, I don't necessarily know all their names. So that's like kind of a lot of. I try to know kids' names, but I know these kids. I look at them, I talk to them. Whenever they wave to me, I wave back, and I've gotten to be a part of this family. The teachers, they know that I care about them. We spend time in devotion on Thursdays. They meet the rest of the week for devotion time, but I'm there that day. So that means out of the entire school year, they're going to see me every Thursday. And it's just this kind of, and I told the principal when I made these plans, I was like, I know that doesn't sound like much. It's like, but it's all I can do, being the only staff person who's full time in the ministry. I said, this is what I can do, and I'll do it faithfully. And really, so that was kind of like the first step with that from the school side. So I just kind of kept doing this over and over and over and over again, and then strategically began to communicate clearly within the school, with the principal's help and the teacher's help, that hey, the life of the Christian community, meaning the church and school, the mission of God in Christ Jesus, is important. And this is where what comes into play is not just me, but all of these people over and over again saying that what God is doing through his church is important. We have called workers in our school. Our principal's a called worker. They understand mission. Again, people who aren't called workers can also understand that, but it's nice to have a couple that are been through training, who know that, hey, this is why I'm here. And that helps again with the greater staffing community to see that same value. And I really feel like here that we're all pushing the same direction. So because I'm present and around, and again, lifting up how important all of this is, and they see again and want to lift up how important this is, the principal sees how important all of this is, and we just we're here. So that's been kind of the school side of things, and the church side of things was essentially, okay, so how then can we leverage kind of places where these two groups of people can do things together? And this is where we talked about earlier, like things like a trunk or treat or something. Like this is where having spaces where people from the outside of the community and people inside the community can kind of come and do things together. So we have like our candy cane lane, which is trunk or treat in December, where we teach about the Christmas story.
Mm-hmm.
We have our jelly beans and Jesus, which is the same kind of thing as a trunk or treat, but in before Easter. So we have these events. We've had skate, scoot, and walk, where we turn the parking lot to a skating rink and invite the neighborhood kids, as well as the school kids, as well as the church kids, and families come. I'm the skate guard, so I skate in a circle for at least an hour and a half, and don't stop, so kids don't get like all, run over each other. We have a community pickleball league where we striped our parking lot with pickleball courts. You buy like a $65 net and a bunch of paddles, and just people come and play. And we've got people from the community, people from the church, people from the school. And actually, that was kind of the pathway to membership, if you want to call it, which was families in our school would have their kids baptized. And then they would, which I only baptize on Sundays. We don't baptize in chapel. We only baptize on Sunday mornings. Like you got to come through the church side of things. Your parents have their kids baptized. They would start playing pickleball. They would start hanging out more in worship. They'd join the congregation, and then they're there. Like that's just part of life here. Again, that's just kind of how people grew into being here because, again, people spending time together, the church being a place where not only you hear about God and Jesus and what he does to bring us back to our Heavenly Father, but you also find this place of rich relationships and care for other people that you don't necessarily get everywhere else. And people have come to become part of this community at their own pace. Like I mentioned, the guy that I just baptized, the dad, his son was baptized 1 year before him. But he came in and talked to me a year later, and he says, this is what I want. I want to be baptized. So, I mean, and that's not the only time that this happens. Like it's exciting. So, I don't know. I'll stop talking for a minute. Yeah, you should make comment.
Well, yeah. So what I hear you describing is two other words that you used in an email to me a week or two ago, that you provide a consistent presence.
Yeah.
And now you correct me, or you define those terms probably better than I would, just taking a stab at it. But by consistent, it seems like, you promised to be at the school those days, those times, and you were physically there, and you were consistently there. So if somebody was looking out for you, they'd know where to find you. They didn't have to track you down with your cell phone number, or, at a meeting at church sometime, or Sunday morning, or, some other thing, hoping to find you, but they could run into you there. What else does that mean for you? Consistent presence.
Just basically that people are regularly seeing me, and that what they see in me is Jesus. Like I mean, it's not that I'm so great, but it's that in knowing that I'm on mission as I am where I am, and that people are coming to know who God is by me being in these places, again, as his representative, that he's going to do what he needs to do there. And even the other day, I was just recently, I heard this from a person who is not a follower of Jesus, who is part of our school. And she just mentioned how much she appreciated the way in which how I conduct myself, she said, has shown her the best of what faith is. And I was like, I just said, you're welcome. Because I definitely have bad days too. I mean, let's be real.
Well,
like my wife, or even people here. And again, when I have a bad day, I say, I'm sorry. Like, that's Jesus has the tools to deal. That's why this works, is because he died on the cross, so we can deal with stuff when we're disappointed. But it was just very encouraging for somebody who's not close to God right now, is seeing, again, the presence that I bring, many other people bring here. I'd say that, again, why this is cranking is because it's a lot of people, a lot of presence in all these different spaces who are holding up this work that God's doing here. But it's drawing people to the Lord. So yes, I would just say it's being someplace, being dependent on, and having the chance to see clearly the God that you and I know in Christ.
Yeah, and we both know that in this day and time, people are neutral to suspicious or even skeptical of the church and of church leaders. And so if you've got a consistent presence and you're genuine, like what you're saying, genuine person who cares, genuine person of faith, genuine person who confesses had a bad day, and is grateful for the grace of God as well. That's huge. So is there sort of a pathway then, that because people aren't coming to us just off the street, that they're introduced to genuine community through these kinds of activities, through relationships with the school, and then through this sort of team effect with yourself and principal and other parents, I suppose, teachers, that there's the modeling and the encouragement, verbally intentional, that, okay, check us out on Sunday morning. And that turns into curiosity, turns into a request for baptism. Am I close, or
Yeah,
what
no,
am I missing?
well, see, this is, I haven't revealed this yet. So
Okay.
no, we're very direct. And this is where, I think that what the church typically forgets is that typically churches provide typically churches, especially smaller congregations like the ones I've been a part of, typically, um, are more inside culture. You don't really necessarily know how something how you would get, like, how would you get baptized or know you needed to be baptized?
Yeah.
Um, why would you come to church? I mean, I think that's again part of the, people have these like religious artifacts in their life, as far as like, I might have been at Christmas Eve service, or I might have been baptized. I'm not sure if I was baptized, like all this stuff where you're just kind of, there's some still, good feelings about church that many people have. Some people don't, but I think a lot of people do. But then you have kind of this, we meaning congregations typically aren't that direct. So um, so that was part of what I did when I got here, working with the principal, because I mean, I'm at a place where the principal is 100% on board with the church. I mean, she's worshiping every week. Like she loves Jesus, knows Jesus, and she knows the mission of God is important. Like, I mean, it's remarkable and amazing. And, Principal Kelly Riley rocks. You rock. You rock. um, uh, and so that, hands down, very important. But we talked, and through this journey of the last 3 years, I think there had been engagement from the school and the church somewhat, but it was not there. There wasn't really the intense push to say, "Hey, this is like." I mean, kids came and they sang and they did. I mean, so there was definitely work being done, but we sat down together and I said, what if we started to be really direct? Like, what if, and we started to brainstorm, like, well, what if in new student orientation, all the spiritual life of the school, I talk about that. So I have an orientation video where I talk about what the Lutheran Church is about. I talk about what our church, how you're a part of our church. I talk about how you can be baptized in the church. We have baptism events. So I'll finish with the orientation first. We go through orientation. We talk about all the things that are going to happen throughout the year. Every parent has to go through orientation. Every parent has to watch my video. That's one time I'm not present, because I can't be present everywhere. Video didn't say I'd be there. So, and then on the forms for our registration, we have a place where you write down your baptism birthday. First of all, have you been baptized? The kids write down their baptism birthday. Their parents do. If they have not been baptized, they can say seeking baptism, or learn more about Lutheran Church. They can put down what church they're a member of, or if they're not a member of a church. So we're asking for all that information up front, and then we use it. So we don't just have it, we use it. So I get a list of everybody who responds to this and who wants to know more. I reach into their life via email and connect with them and start conversations. So this is kind of the beginning push. So the people who put down things that they're interested or not baptized, we start to kind of reach to these families. And then the kids who have been baptized, we actually celebrate their baptism birthday every month in chapel. So if you were baptized in the month of October, the first week of November, we celebrate your baptism birthday. And what do I do in chapel? During 3 chapels, that week, I teach on baptism. Not as the main message, but as kind of, well, we're celebrating baptism birthdays. What are these? So I bring a bowl of water up and I talk about Matthew 28. I talk about what happens in baptism. I mean, the teaching happens each time. And then I dip my finger in the water and I say, hey, today there's going to be some people who are celebrating their baptism birthday, and they're going to dip their finger in the water and put a cross on their forehead to remember that they were baptized, claimed by God. And I just want to make sure, are you being rebaptized? I was like, no, you're not. You're remembering your baptism. You're baptized once. And the kids dip their fingers. So what was really cool was that the other week when I did 6 baptisms over that Sunday, 3 of the kids who were baptized had been in chapel the last 2 years, and they actually, before I baptized them, dipped their finger in the water and put a cross on their forehead before I baptized them. It was beautiful. Like they were listening the entire time.
They got to do that. They got to do that day.
They dipped their fingers. Yeah. So and then I put their head down. I baptized them, and then the first week in November, because they were baptized October 15th. That first week in November, they came up to celebrate their baptism birthday and got to dip their finger in that water and put a cross on their forehead and go with their brothers and sisters in Christ. And these kids. I mean, one of the kids I remember in chapel 2 years ago said, "I don't know these stories of Jesus. I don't know this Jesus." And well, he knows Jesus. So so it's just, again, but so we're using the information we get.
Thank you, Dan, for your time in this interview today, and thank you for listening. Be sure to check out lcmscoaching.com if you're interested in coaching, if you're interested in finding a coach, because there's a directory of certified coaches there, or if you're looking for coach training. And you can also go to scottgress.com if you'd like to further the conversation with me. Well, be sure to tune in for part 2 of this interview, where Dan Prugh goes into a lot more detail about how he leads his congregation. So blessings on your leadership, and we look forward to talking with you next time on The Coaching Leader.